Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all distinguished guests and participants. For your record, we would like to let you know that this program will be recorded for further dissemination. It is with great pleasure and honor, I, Ashma Aryal, Outreach and Communication Officer at NDRI, stand before you today as your Master of Ceremony for the program. On behalf of Nepal Development Research Institute, I extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to each and every one of you gathered here. Your presence in this gathering adds a great privilege to all of us. To begin our program, let us take a moment to acknowledge the presence of our esteemed dignitaries, Her Excellency Felicity Vogue, Ambassador of Australia to Nepal.
Namaste, great to see everybody. Good afternoon.
And all the senior female writers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your presence. We deeply are grateful for your presence here today. Now moving forward, I would like to request all the participants to introduce yourself. Kindly introduce yourself with your name, current address, and your interest or genre. A gentle reminder, please make your introduction a bit precise. I would like to begin with myself. I'm Ashma Aryal, currently residing in Battis Putali, Kathmandu. I am an avid reader and I adore literature to every bit. Now I would move on to Ms. Anju Gautam. Could you open your video and unmute yourself, please? Ms. Anju Gautam Yogi.
Thank you, ma'am, for providing this wonderful opportunity. I'm Anju Gautam, professionally a teacher. I teach language and literature. Apart from this, I'm very much fond of literature. I love writing and reading a lot of books, especially my genre is fiction. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anju ma'am. Moving on to our next participant, Anshuji, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you so much. I am Indu Amsu from Bhaktapur. My interested genre, poetry, metric poem, editing, and ghostwriting. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Amshuji. Moving on to Bhavani ji, Bhavani Khatiola ji.
Namaste from Kathmandu. I'm Bhavani Khatioda, poetry and travel log writer. My occupation, I working Department of Agriculture, Government of Nepal as a agriculture extension officer. I write a poet and travel log. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our next participant, Dr. Geeta Tripathi.
Namaste. I'm Geeta Tripathi from Baluwatar, Kathmandu, a poet, songwriter, essayist, and literary critic. I'm assistant professor in TU, Tribhuvan University. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, Jyoti ma'am, I would like to please introduce yourself.
Namaste to everybody. Good afternoon. I am poet, lyricist, and story writer. Currently, I am living in Kathmandu. My best genre is poetry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Neeru ma'am, could you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. This is Neeru Tripathi, originally from Nepal, Tarding, and currently I'm in Australia. I have had a privilege calling Melbourne as my second home and living here more than decades now, where I have dedicated my professional life to communication and public relations, serving with governmental bodies and media sector. Beyond my professionals, writing holds a special place in my heart. It's both my passion and my vacation. In 2020, I had the honor of publishing my debut novel, Parishkano, delving into the theme of love, romance, social issues, women empowerment, and the complexity of the postmodern world. Currently, I find immersed in the creation of my second novel, which continue to explore this manifested theme. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Pragya, madam, could you introduce yourself?
I'm Pragya Paniru. Currently, I'm in Australia. I'm living here since 5 years, and I'm conducting research as a PhD student at UNSW. I'm also an academic and a researcher, and currently I have published one novel, Bisanuri. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like Miss Nirmala Baral, ma'am, to introduce herself.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Namaste. I am Nirmala Baral. Originally, I am from Viratnagar, and now I live in Sano Thimi, Bhaktapur, Kathmandu. I have written 5 children's books, short stories, and poems so far. Thank you all. This is my short introduction. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to request Ms. Sanu for her introduction.
Good afternoon, everybody in Nepal. Good evening, my friends in Australia. It's 8:23 p.m. in Australia right now, in Sydney and Melbourne, I believe. So my name is Sanu Ghimire. I have been living in Australia for 14 years now. I have published 2 books. One is Anthology of Poetry, which is called Grohan, and then another is Sydney Sapna, a novel. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to request Ms. Sushma to introduce herself. Ms. Sushma, could you unmute yourself and turn on your video, please?
Namaste. I'm Engineer Susma Khatri Ranjit from Lalitpur. My interest and hobbies is writing, poem, essay, memories, and travel logs. Last year, I published my 1 book, Odisha Diary. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to request Sushna Gurumji to introduce herself.
Namaste, everyone. I am Sushna Gurum from Buranilkantha, Kathmandu, and I am currently a second-year student of psychology and English literature here in St. Xavier's College, Maitigar. And I'm just here to, listen to the experts and learn a few things. Thank you so much for the opportunity, everyone.
Thank you, Sushna ji. Now I would like to request Sabita Gautam Dahal ji for her introduction.
Namaste. I'm Sabita Gautam Dahal from Viratnagar. Good afternoon to all of you. I teach in an engineering college, chemistry, but I love poetry. Basically, my interest is poetry, and I have published 3 books of poetry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did I miss out anybody online? Now I would like to request Ms. Shobha Adhikari to introduce herself. Could you unmute yourself, please?
Namaste and good afternoon. My name is Shobha Adhikari. My hometown is Gorkha. Current address is Kathmandu. I am a former lecturer, freelance writer, and social worker. My interest is literature and traveling. Thank you so much to provide the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else?
She does.
So, may I request Ms. Sunita Acharya to introduce herself?
Namaste everyone, I'm Sunita Acharya from Tanau Damauli. I love to write ghazal, sometimes poetry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess we're done with our virtual participants. Now I'd like to request our colleagues to introduce themselves.
Namaskar, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sunita Magar, and I'm working as a research associate at NDRI under Disaster Risk Management Program. My background is geology, and I'm glad to be connected with all the wonderful ladies here. Thank you.
Namaste everyone, my name is Nivita Shrestha and I'm also currently working as a research associate at NDRI. Thank you.
Namaste everyone, my name is Sonisha Raila and I'm also working as a research associate at NDRI under Economic Development Program. Thank you.
Namaste everyone, my name is Anjana Ramishane. I'm also working in NDRI under the Tobacco Control Program. My background is economics and I'm glad to be here and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Namaste, good afternoon everyone. Myself Utsaha Gartola, working as a senior research assistant here at NDRI under Health Education and Environment Program, and I'm really glad to be part of this program. Thank you so much.
Namaste everyone, my name is Sufia Shrestha and I'm working as a senior research assistant here at NDRI. My background is environmental engineering and I'm working under the Health Education and Environment Program and the Water and Climate Program. Thank you.
Namaste and good afternoon to all of you. This is one of the most fortunate gentlemen out here in this meeting today. And it's really my pleasure to meet Your Excellency. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm really delighted that this event is a success now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your introduction, everyone. Next, we have the privilege of welcoming Dr. Geeta Tripathi. I would like to request her to deliver the welcome remarks.
Thank you, Asmaji. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Australia to Nepal, senior women writers, my fellow colleagues, distinguished participants, Namaste and a very good afternoon to all of you. It is with great pleasure and honor that I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you gathered here today for this auspicious occasion. Our event today holds significant importance as we have the esteemed presence of Her Excellency Felicity Hawke, the Ambassador of Australia to Nepal, gracing us as the chief guest. We are truly privileged to have Her Excellency Felicity Hawke amongst us, not only as a distinguished diplomat, but also as a prolific writer, having penned 2 remarkable novels. Her presence here today not only adds prestige to our event, but also reflects the deep-rooted cultural and literary connections between Nepal and Australia. What more, it is indeed a pleasure to welcome the talented Nepalese female writers who have joined us to share their insights and perspectives to come on contemporary Nepali women's writing. Your contributions to the literary landscape of Nepal are invaluable, and we are honored to have you with us today. I'm further delighted to let you all know that we have 3 distinguished Nepali female writers from Australia. Your presence here today signifies your support for the promotion of literature and cultural exchange between our 2 nations. The notable items of the day is a presentation by Sanu Ghimire on contemporary Nepali women's writing status and prospects, shedding light on the current trends and future prospects in Nepali literature, particularly concerning women writers. We are also honored to have writer Jhamak Ghimire's remarks, which will be delivered by Susma Khatri Ranjit. Writer Jhamak Ghimire's insights are sure to inspire and enlighten us, offering a unique perspective on the power of writing, even one is not endowed with what everyone else has. Miss Kimiri cannot speak, move, sit easily, or use her hands, and has no academic qualifications, but she is a shining star in the world of literature in Nepal. Of course, the highlight of our event will be the remarks by Her Excellency Felicity Bog. We eagerly await her insights and reflections, both as a diplomat and as a writer, on the importance of cultural exchange and collaboration in the literary world. I'm sure that her guidance and guardianship will help us to rise further and further. Once again, I extend my heartfelt welcome to all our distinguished guests, participants, and attendees. May our event today be a fruitful and enriching experience for us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tripathi, for your enriching remarks. Now I would like to hand over the floor to Ms. Sanu Ghimire, who will be presenting on the contemporary Nepali women's writing, status and prospects. Ms. Ghimire, the floor is yours.
Let's save the screen first, then I will start. So everybody can see my screen or not?
Kindly go to the slideshow mode. Go to the slideshow mode.
I'm trying, just, yes?
That's the one.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yes, that's perfect.
So good afternoon, everybody again. Namaste. I would like to acknowledge and pay respect to Her Excellency Felicity Bog. And I would like to express my happiness to know that you are also a writer, and you have written, you love literature, and you have written 2 books, Desire Lines and Lightning. I have not read your books, but I knew about them now, so I will definitely read and send you some feedback soon. I would like to thank to Navraj Khatiwada for organizing this program and giving me opportunity to do presentation, as well as I would like to thank to Dr. Geeta Tripathi Didi for giving me this opportunity to present this presentation. I am co-author of this slide presentation, but the main content I have got from Dr. Geeta Tripathi. I'm so overwhelmed and so much happy that when I came to Australia 14 years ago, and I have been living in this country, sometimes I think that I'm not belong to mainstream of Australian literature. And when I go to Nepal, every year I go to Nepal, and then I feel that I even don't belong to there. I used to feel that. But when Geeta Didi and Navraj Dai gave me this chance, and then I felt, no, I still belong to the group of women writers in Nepal. So that makes me very emotional. Thank you so much for giving me this chance to present these slides. So as you all know that there is a limitation of this presentation because I have to finish in 15 minutes. So me and Geeta Tripathi, we have made it concise. We may be not able to include all the name of women's writers, but we have done our best to acknowledge all of you. So let's start the presentation. The title is Contemporary Nepali Women's Writing, Status and Prospectus by Dr. Geeta Tripathi and myself, Sanu Ghimire. So first, we have done outline of this presentation. I'm going to talk about the historical phases of women writing, women's writers' context within Nepal, themes in women's writings, Nepali women's literature in global context, and we jump to Australian context, and what are current challenges and how to mitigate these challenges. So let's go inside. We have divided the phase of women writings as introductory phase, first phase, second phase, and third phase onwards. So we all know that education and literature are connected with each other, associated with each other's. When we know to write, we know to read, then we can express ourselves. So education and expressions are interrelated. In 18th century in Nepal, there was education was not for the public people. The access in education were only in elite family, very royal family or very few elite family. So without education, there was no chance for expression or literatures. So women were considered as the second human being in status all the time. At that time, it was intense. So only few women has written books at that time. When we see the history, we saw that Queen Tripura Sundari was founded as the first published author who had written Raj Dharma in 1824, and followed by Bhakti Kumari Rana, Ambika Devi, and other very few women writers in Nepal. They used to write poem and fiction. The key themes of their writings was translation of Sanskrit moral books, devotion, grief, and mourning. We can get those elements in their writings. So another phase we have divided is from 1933 to 1964. At that time, emerging writing and practices, women's access to education and expression after 1950. In 1950, we got democracy in Nepal and the education was open for public. There was still the discrimination between male and female in Nepal. Boys used to go to school, but girls were not allowed to go to school. But few women, especially in city area, they started going to school and having education. When they got education, then they started writing. So we can take that area as the emergence of more writers, women's access to education and expression after 1950. So their writing themes were again devotional, spiritual, compassionate, and women's struggles in daily life and their social lives. So we have written some names here on the screen. You can see Vidya Devi, Tushar Mallika, and some other women like Goma and others. So let's jump into another phase. That is the second phase of women's writing. Sorry. So more opportunities and expansion of creativity we can see in these phases of women's writing. The themes were experimental, existential, progressive, and depth in intellectuality, influence from Western literature, clear picture of society, progressive themes, women's sufferings. At that time, many remarkable women writers came to write the literature. I can see the name of Dr. Bani Ragiri. Her writings, we know her as a very popular women writer. Kunta Sharma, I remember her poem still, Pothi Basnu Udena. That was a feminist poem. Still, we remember that poem for feminist point of view. It was like a milestone poem. And Prema Saha, I still remember her story, Yellow Rose, and followed by different writers. They all are very reputed writers. I like to acknowledge Gargi Sharma. Currently, she is in Sydney and she is attending all the literature program happening here. So I like to pay respect to her and all the women's writer of that area, that era. So third phase start from 1982 onwards. That was the period of innovation and experiment. On the screen, you can see one very popular writer of Nepali literature. Her name is Parijat. When we talked about our old generation writer, we remember Parijat. Her status is very high. Her novel Siriskoful, which is called Blue Mimosa in English, was very popular. And that novel got very prestigious prize of Nepal, Madan Puraskar Award. So she is the one of the prestigious women writer in Nepal. So in third page, we saw many more political and social engagement of women in their writings. Nepali women from home and abroad contributing together, because women had access to education, access to higher education, and they started going to overseas for education and immigration process. So many different types of issues we can see on their writings. So I have written the name of some active women writers. On the slide, you can see they all are very remarkable. And then in this short slideshow, this presentation, we cannot write name of all women's writer, but they have contributed from their side very remarkably. So you can see the name of some reputed women writers on the screen. I'm not going to recite all of them. And I would like to acknowledge the women writers from India too. They consider themselves Indian writer, but who writes in Nepal. So they have contributed in Nepalese language very remarkably. So I would like to acknowledge them as well. So I have mentioned about Jhamak Ghimire in this slide, a milestone achievements in literatures. According to Nepal census 2021, 2.2% of the Nepali population have a disability. Most of them do not have access to education because of a lack of disability-friendly infrastructure and policy. I have been living in Australia for 14 years, and I have been working, currently also I work in disability sector. I have seen that the government has got very good funding through NDIS to disabled people in Australia, so they can have education, they can have more freedom in independency in their life in Australia. But very sadly, I have to say that in Nepal, disabled people have not got opportunity to live their life as a normal human being. They don't have access to even small things, very, very basic things through they don't have access. But despite that circumstances, Jhamak Kumari Ghimire had dared to write literature. We have read her book, A Flower in the Midst of Thorn, which is called Jiban Karnaki Phul in Nepali. In that book, she has written about herself, how she had started knowing the letters, how she had started writing. It is very emotional. So I like to pay my respect to Jhamak Kumari Ghimire for daring to write the literature. And she has not only dared to write the literature, she has done very good. She has become the national women writer, writer. We acknowledge her like that. In her book, A Flower in the Midst of Thorn, had received Madan Puraskar, which is the prestigious prizes in Nepal. I would like to salute her for her work. So let's move ahead. Let's talk about the Nepali women writers in overseas. Nepali women have reached in almost every continent. I have specified here America, Europe, and Oceania zone. I'm not going to read the name of all the writers here, but I would like to acknowledge two writers. One is Neelam Karki Niharika from America. She has written one book called Yogamaya, which is an experimental book. If we see the experimental book in Nepal, there are only few, and Neelam Karki Niharika has written that book. So she has got the prize for that book, that Madan Puraskar Prize, which is very prestigious prize in literature in Nepal. And there is another writer, Nepalese women writer who lives in UK, London. Her name is Sangeeta Swecha. Dr. Sangeeta Swecha has jointly edited, just a moment, a book called A Glimpses to My Country. In the University of California syllabus, they teach this book. She has been working to promote Nepali literature, translating it into English and publishing books in English language in London. I talked to her yesterday night too. She has been doing a lot of good things to promote Nepali language, and she is trying to take Nepali language in the mainstream of literature in UK. So I like to acknowledge her and Nilam Karki Niharika both. So let's move to the Australian context. In 1970s, Nepalese migration started in Australia. When we talk about the institutional initiatives, we can take the name of two literary organizations. One is NKSSP, which was established in 2007, and another is International Nepali Literary Society, which was established in 2011 in Sydney. In these two leading literary organizations, women had got a good leadership. I have written the name of Sujata Kesi and Janaki Paudel. They were past president of NKSSP. Myself, Sanu Ghimire and Mamata Tiwari, we were also past president of INLS. And Rija Pradhan, she is the president of INLS in Western Australia. Mahata Ghimire Chapagai, she is a vice president of INLS in SCT. So I would like to mention about our collective work, which we are doing to promote women's writing in Australia. I'm leading a joint project for Nepalese women writers. We have just started. We aim to finish this in 1 year, aiming to publish short stories by 12 Nepali women writers residing in Australia to find the pathway to the mainstream of Australian literature. In this context, I am hoping to meet face to face to Your Excellency Felicity Bok sometimes in Australia or in Kathmandu. Let's see what's going to happen in future. But I'm hoping to see you sometimes face to face too. I have mentioned the name of some contemporary women writers who are authors. We have published books in Nepali and English language. We all live in Australia, which name is on this slide. So let's talk about the literary themes and trends in contemporary Nepali women's literature. I have seen that identity, gender roles, social issues, politics, caste and ethnicity, class and region, and migration. We have seen these elements, these themes and trends are written in women's literatures by Nepali women writers. So let's talk about the challenges of women writings. Writing opportunities is still limited to women from privileged background. If we see, there is always class in our community. Some are in higher class, some are in very poor class, which is called privileged background and non-privileged background. So I have seen the expression of freedom of the access in education, the access in publications. Privileged women have got more chances than unprivileged women. There is a layers of intersections. The real layers are regional, ethnic, caste-wise, social status, language background. On these all layers, there are two types of women, privileged and non-privileged. In those layers of intersections also, privileged women have more access to education, freedom of expression, freedom of writing, and access to publication. And I have seen that lack of recognition and validation from society. When women rights, and they always question us. They don't give us validation. They think that what she has written, maybe she has written only about her tears, sorrows, and about her kitchen and her about children. So I have seen that there is not enough validation and recognition from our society to women writers. Another point is lack of opportunity for advancement and support for emerging writers. So there are also two classes. One is established writers and another is emerging writers. I have seen, and then maybe when I'm telling you this, maybe you can also realize that there is a lack of opportunity to progress, to advance, and support for emerging writers like me. No supporting environment in encouragement. This is for all women writers, that we don't have enough supporting environments. I'm not whinging for that, but when we compare it to the main supporting environment, then I have seen that we have less supporting environment. We don't have our personal space. And when our age changes, our responsibility changes, when we get married, when we get children, when we go to work in the office or universities or outside of the house, then we are getting less supporting environment and encouragement from society to write. And another is questioning on women authorship. I have seen that in Nepal and Australia both, that when women write something, they questions to us. I have even heard that they say, did she write? Maybe some man has helped. This type of question they always do to us. So I have seen that questioning women authorship. So hesitation due to cultural stigma. Our culture, we born and grew up in very conservative cultural practices in Nepal. I born and grew up in Brahmin caste. I have seen this cultural stigma so much in my caste or where I grew up. And then that has the influence in our culture, even in current situation. When I wrote about sexual violence and marital rape in my novel Sydney Sapna, people questions me as I was writing the cheap things. So talking about sexual violence or marital rape, they tag me writing cheap things. So kind of they are trying to pressurize us. They don't let us to express ourselves in our writing. So that's what I wrote, hesitation due to cultural stigma. I have experienced that. And maybe in another book, I will be more hesitant to write about those things which exist, but people hesitate to express because of cultural stigma. So let's move to another point, not much discussion of women's writing. So to enhance the skill and to enhance the quality in writing, I have seen there is no more discussion in women's writing. When we women meet, most of the time, we don't talk about writing things. We talk about other, household things and other things. So I have seen that there is the less discussion on women's writing. Another is limited coordination between senior writers and new writers. I rarely see that senior writers are supporting to new writers. I have seen that even senior writers, I'm not blaming to senior writers, but that is my experience. That is my observation. Being a new writer, I have seen that senior women writers are not supporting enough to new writers. They don't do the commentary, or they are hesitate to give the feedback to women writers. That makes me very sad. I hope in the future we get the culture that established writer or senior writers will start supporting to new women writers. Publication bias. Publication bias is the major challenges in our community. We have experienced, I think all of us have experienced it. Most of the publication in Nepal, the authorship is male has got ownership in this type of publication. And they don't like to give us chance to publish. I have seen that some reputed publication in Nepal, they have not even published one women writer's book by themselves. So there is a big struggle to have the access in publication. Publication bias, I have seen it is a major issue in women's writing. So another is limited promotion to women writers. If we get the chance to publish our book too, in the terms of promotion, we are getting less promotion. It has to be more in the future. So let's jump into another side. So there is a saying that in every dark clouds, there is silver lining. So if there is a challenges, there is opportunities too. So let's talk about the opportunities. Women's access to education and exploration of outside world, that has given variation in women's writing nowadays. Increased awareness of equality and equity. We can see the gender issues and awareness of equality and equity in women's writing nowadays. We have opportunities to explore in these areas more in our writing in futures. Political consciousness, rebellion along progressive consciousness and global influence. These are the opportunities to include in our writings in futures. So I'm in the end of my presentation. How to mitigate the challenges? Let's talk about this for a while. I think training for enhancing writing skills and craft. We have been writing, and then usually we get the blame that we are unable to go outside of our kitchen and the house. We always write about our tears, pain, and the sufferings. But if we get the training, advanced type of training, then we can enhance our writing skills and craft in different variations of our lifestyles or in different topics of the world. And we have capacity for that. Interaction program between women writers from various backgrounds and stages. I think these interactions will help, will motivate women writers from various backgrounds and stages to enhance their skills. Exploration and documentation of past and present women writers and their writing. So there are many women writers. Nowadays, I have seen the trends that they have started documenting about women writers, but this has to be more in the future. Establish formal and informal women writers groups such as Gunjan and Ahwan, that some women writers, they are not comfortable to talk. They always get hesitant in front of men because our cultural practices for a long time. So women writers groups such as Gunjan and Ahwan, where they bring women writers together and give chance to interact us in women's circle, that will help us to develop our writing skills.
Sanati,
So another point is questioning the women's representation.
Sanati, I would like you to conclude, please. Sanati.
Yes, just two more points and I'm concluding, please. In various publications, more women lead publications such as Akshar Creations. I have seen only one publication in Nepal, which ownership is from women writer. Additional exploration and support from emerging writers from a disadvantaged background. I like to conclude my presentation, but at the end, I like to acknowledge Pragya Paneru and Niru Tripathi from Australia for coming here and supporting me to make this presentation. And I would like to acknowledge again Dr. Geeta Tripathi for providing the materials to make this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kimiri, for your remarkable presentation. We had planned this event so that respected Jhamak Ghimire ji would also join, but I regret to inform you that she is not well and could not join us today. However, she has sent her kind words, and I would like to request Ms. Sushma Khatri Ranjit to deliver her words. Please, Ms. Sushma, you may proceed.
Good afternoon. Namaste. Her Excellency, Australian Ambassador to Nepal, Felicity Volk, senior writers and colleagues from Nepal and overseas. Now I'm going to read speech of famous writer Jhamak Kumari Ghimire. The topics is, my life is included a karma. Questions always arise. What impact have my actions had on time and society? Lost in thought, I contemplated. My action haven't hurt society. I believe I am content with my life and deeds. In the past, I feel colors in the canvas of life, and now later paint the canvas of life. In past creation, I always feel colors in the canvas of life. This time also it's the same. This time many readers' love and goodwills have given me strength. With the strength Karmana is born. I am pleased to inform you that my next book, Karmana, is coming for you. In Karmana, I have freely expressed the events of life. After reading the books Jivan Kada Ki Phul, translated as the flowers in the mist or thorns, many readers had to ask, is the literary life of Jhamak lost after that? What was the journey after that? In what way did it progress? In the answer to this, I have freely expressed in Karmana. Sometimes life is depicted in the form of tears, sometimes in the forms of enthusiasm. The pain of the life, times, and society scares the writers than when he or she breathes. And though the later, the birth and essence of the express. This essence doesn't have the same inspiration as yesterday. A citizen's time and society endured. Some readers argue to me, why the pain in fiction? If the life is the someone is fiction in itself, why should I write fictions? I took it as a joke. In reality, I cannot write fiction. Thus, genre is not my priority. I either enjoy reading fiction, but I am too lazy to write it. Although I respect fiction writer, I enjoy essay and poetry much more. I was very like anything in these genres. It feels to me that whatever capability exists, a person can only show that much. This doesn't mean that I have abundant capability. The process of learning from humans can continue until death. My work of learning also continues. Today, I wanted to join the program with Excellency Felicity Volk and all my Nepalese women writers who are participating from around Nepal and Australia. Because of my health issue, I couldn't come. I am sorry for that. I hope I will see you all in the other program sometimes. I wish all of you the best. Namaste, Jhamak Kumari Ghimire, Dhankuta, Nepal. Thank you, Navra sir and committee, giving me this opportunity, big opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful words written by Ms. Ghimire. Thank you, Ms. Khatri. Now I would like to request our distinguished guest of honor, Her Excellency Felicity Volk, Ambassador of the Embassy of Australia to Nepal, to deliver her remarks.
Thank you so much, our respected MC, and a warm namaste to everybody. I had not realised that we would have 3 people from Australia joining as well, and what a pleasure to be reminded of the universal pleasure of writing, of reading, and of coming together as a sisterhood of women writers to support each other. I wanted to thank, of course, Noah Raj for his kind offer to convene this meeting. It was as a result of an unusual sequence of meetings that suddenly we're all here. And I have this extraordinary pleasure to, in a brief hour, meet and hear from so many distinguished Nepali women writers, both here in Nepal, but also in Australia. Sanu, I assure you I look forward to meeting you. My posting finishes in August. It will have been an absolutely extraordinary 3.5 years that I've had here in Nepal. And that will mark the end of a 35-year career with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And, as I'm telling everybody here, my plan when I finish my posting is that I will retire from my work as a diplomat so that I can now move back into my passionate writing life and to return to the blank page and to start working again as a writer of fiction. I am in the fortunate position of, and you referred to this in your presentation so eloquently, Sanu, the fact that often to be able to write, you need to belong to a fairly privileged class of people who can actually afford to live at the same time that they're writing. For me, there was no way I could afford to live off my writing. I decided that quite early on and consequently found a career that still allowed me to employ some of those skills that we use as writers, that observation of people, the understanding of psychology of people, the articulation of that, and then also, bringing together a range of communication skills in my work as a diplomat. But my heart has always led me in the direction of writing, and I've been fortunate that through grants from what was then called the Australia Council, but also Arts ACT, a state government funding body, I received funding to support me with the writing of my 2 novels. I came late to publishing professionally, but I was writing from the earliest stages. Both my parents were English teachers, both poets. My mother is still in her mid-80s, a prolific writer. In fact, on the 20th of March, she's launching another novel. And so I've grown up in a culture of reading and writing and a culture that appreciates the word, written and spoken. So I was writing short stories and poetry from the earlier stages, but it was really only in the early 2000s that I came into writing professionally and for publication. I am so sad that I don't have a chance to actually meet through virtually Jamak Gimare, and those of you who are in contact with her, would you please pass on my deep respect for her and my ongoing wish to meet her in person for a proper conversation at some point. I saw the article in Nepali Times about her, which was the first time I was acquainted with her and her work, and I would so love to have an opportunity to talk writing with her. But what a pleasure anyway to be able to talk writing with all of you today. My time here is limited. I have to walk out the door in 5 minutes because I've got another event to go to, an engagement to go to. So I just wanted to make a few comments, and these reflections that are similar to Sanu's, namely that no matter how talented women are, and we know that we're incredibly talented writers and we write about important topics, and universal themes, our writing has been diminished by a publishing world that has been dominated by men for many centuries. And indeed, this has been the experience in Australia. And if I hark back to the 20th century, there was a golden period for Australian literature and indeed for Australian novelists. And one of our most famous novelists of the early to mid 20th century, or the early 20th century, was indeed Miles Franklin, whose full name was Stella Maria Sarah Miles Franklin. But she went by Miles Franklin because that was a male-sounding name and it was the only name under which she could easily publish. And in fact, she made a lot of money from her publishing when she went from Australia to the UK and was published there. As a result of the funding that came from her estate, money that she earned as a female writer writing under a male pseudonym, a very prestigious, in fact, Australia's most prestigious literary prize was launched, and it's called the Miles Franklin Award. And ironically, for a prize and a purse that came from a female writer, predominantly for the first probably 50 years of the award of that prize, the prize was the long list, the short list, and indeed the winners were dominated by men. Very few women ever made it onto either the long list or the short list. And as a consequence of that, around 12 years ago, roughly, a new prize was launched, and it was called the Stella Prize. And so it was named after her first name, her female name, Stella, and it is only awarded to women writers. Because this has drawn increased exposure to the quality of female writing in Australia, more women are now finding their way onto the Miles Franklin lists as well. So there's been this flow-on effect from a dedicated prize with a very big purse for female writers. And there were a number of female writers who didn't like the idea of this at first, that, you know, somehow they were being coddled. But in fact, as we find with a lot of these sort of affirmative measures, what happens is then women are recognised in mainstream fields and in mainstream prizes, and that has been the effect. The other thing that the Stella Prize Committee does is they have something called the Stella Count. And what they've done is they've looked at and developed data on the number of women writers whose work is reviewed, the number of male reviewers, and what's been found predominantly is that male reviewers will review male works as if women's works are not worth reviewing. But again, by drawing attention to these issues, there's been a shift in culture, and it's slow, but there is a shift in that culture. And so now, in the 21st century, more Australian women writers are being recognised, they're being awarded, they're receiving grants, and they're winning prizes. And this all spells a much more even playing field, not yet even, but it's moving in the right direction for our women writers. In my remaining couple of minutes, I wanted to touch on a couple of points that hark back to the topic that I think you wanted me to briefly refer to, which was the value of cultural exchange. And I would say that these sorts of gatherings are crucial. It is so wonderful for me to know that Nepali writers in Australia have developed a number of organisations focused on literature, and that women are leading in some of those organisations, or at least are represented. It heartens me that when I go back to Australia with a deep love of Nepal, Nepali people, Nepali culture, I will have a Nepali community, including a community of women writers with whom I can connect. And those 3 writers in Australia, I do sincerely look forward to engaging with you when I return, and talking about ways that we can bring literature more into the human bridge between our 2 countries. We all know that the Nepali diaspora community in Australia is our fastest growing migrant community. It has doubled in the last 5 years. Nepali is the 3rd most commonly spoken language in Canberra. But writing in Nepali does mean that your audience is going to be somewhat limited, and I look forward to reading Nepali writing in English until I can finally get around to learning Nepali so that I can read in the native language. But for the time being, for me, it's a great gift when there are translations of Nepali works that I can then access, but also to know the breadth of writing across different genres that is represented here today, and to have seen lists of the Nepali female writers who you would encourage me to read, because this gives me a clearer, my instructions on where I should direct my attention and my reading. I would urge those of you who are in Australia writing to keep in mind the opportunities under Creative Australia, which was formerly known as the Australia Council for the Arts. If you're not already looking at Creative Australia's grants programs, you must, because projects like that publication of short stories by 12 writers, if you haven't tried to source a grant for the publication, I would urge you to do so. And there are grants under the Literature Board of Creative Australia that focus on diaspora writing, and similarly through the writing centres across every capital city in Australia. There is a strong focus on multicultural writers, and you should be looking for funding. Don't do it by yourselves. Get those grants. And again, when I'm back and I have a bit more time, because I am focused on writing, I'd be happy to talk to you about other grants opportunities that I'd encourage you to access. So I see it's 4:01. I'm meant to be out the door, but I just wanted to say again, an absolute privilege to see you all, even virtually. I look forward to meeting more of you in person. Some of you I've crossed paths with, but this sort of sharing of universal story and the untold story, which Maya Angelou always regarded as being the agony that we carry within us until we can bring it out. You know, it's so important that we're telling our stories and telling whatever stories we want to, regardless of what the community out there thinks we should be writing about. We have a very particular voice and we have very particular story as women, as diaspora women, as women from all different backgrounds here in Nepal. And our stories are very significant and they deserve to be told, they deserve to be heard and read. And I look forward to supporting you in those endeavours. Thank you so much. Group photo I've just seen pop up. I guess we all turn our cameras on, look at the camera, and once that photo is taken, I'll have to head off. Thank you so much.
Let's go for a photo first. Thank you. I would like to request everybody to turn on their videos, please. Could everybody turn on their cameras? Could everybody turn on their cameras, please? One, two, three. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency, for your generous remarks. My apologies that we are slightly behind our schedule. We are left with a closing remarks, but since you're running late, we could provide you the video sometime soon after this is over. Thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you so much.
As we near our conclusion, as we near the conclusion of our program, I would like to invite Ms. Sabita Gautam Dahal to deliver her closing remarks. Ms. Dahal, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Australia to Nepal, Felicity Bol, senior and my fellow writers friends, distinguished participants, namaste, and very good afternoon to all of you. It is an immense pleasure to be the part of today's gathering, and I would like to thank every beautiful mind and heart gathered over here. This evening has become a memorable to all of us present here, and the presence of Her Excellency Felicity Bol, the Ambassador of Australia to Nepal, our chief guest, gave us a feeling of togetherness and love to literature. I would like to thank Her Excellency from all of us. Her Excellency, as a prolific writer, have two novels, Desire, Lines, and Lightning. Her presence here today has become precious and added encouragement to literary connection between Nepal and Australia in the field of writing and sharing. I would extend my thanks to Nepalese female writers and distinguished Nepali female writers from Australia. Thank you, Sanu Ghimire, for your presentation on contemporary Nepali women's writing, status, and prospects. I would like to thank my dearest writer, Jhamak Ghimire, for sending the remarks, which was delivered by Sushma Khatri Ranjit. I am a great fan of her poetry too. Finally, I extend my heartfelt thanks to Navrat sir for organizing such a wonderful event, and all our distinguished guests, participants, and attendees, I conclude my vote of thanks with the hope to meet you all again with our writing piece and would be able to share each other's voice soon. Thank you. Thank you all.